Hi guys, and thanks for joining me. Now, I just finished filming this video in Italian, and I really don't know if my English audience, were there any, is really going to enjoy it, but who cares? I'm going to do it nevertheless because I think it's important. Now, I finished it yesterday, one of these books, and I found out by looking at my shelf that I had a book that has a similar feeling in it, and I think this is the right period to read those books. Now, they are both by German authors. One is Austrian, but yes, I mean, you get the idea. And okay, the first one is Chess, or The Chess Story by Stefan Zweig, and the other one is Mario and the Magician by Thomas Mann. Now, this is actually a bundled up edition of two of his stories, the first one being Tonio Kröger, but I'm going to focus on the second one, despite the fact that Tonio Kröger is actually quite good. Now, they are both quite renowned authors, and I read nothing else by Stefan Zweig, and I actually want to read his autobiography because the last years of his life were actually pretty terrible, and I'm also always interested in people having a terrible life, if they are interesting people. And by Thomas Mann, I actually already read Dr. Faustus, which is basically a retelling of the Dr. Faust thing, myth, but set in somewhat a modern age, and it also has a musician as a protagonist, so it's kind of different, and it's really good, even though it's really long. But these books are actually about two very different things, but they are set in the same time period. They are set as basically as Hitler started conquering around Europe, and they both deal with a critique of this figure. Let's talk about chess in the first half of the video. Now, this story is actually about something totally different. It's set about chess, of course. There's a player who starts playing in a certain way. He discovers that he can win, basically, and he wants to get better at playing chess and such and such. I don't really want to talk about the story, even though it's kind of interesting, and well, it's well written and it's amazing. Zweig's written style is really awesome, so you should definitely check it out. But what I really want to talk about is that fact that this book is set in the period of the Anschluss, that being the referendum they had in Austria, asking the people if they wanted to join Germany, so the Third Reich, and of course they did. Now, we have a certain feeling of how wrong it felt for an Austrian citizen who believed his country was somehow a carrier of a certain tradition, of a certain independence, and he basically saw his country deciding to become something totally different from what it truly was, for the feeling that things could get better just because they joined Germany. Now, this book isn't actually dwelling a lot about the theme, but there are a couple of characters in the story who keep mentioning this fact, like how the politics did change in the last years, how people are mistreated, somehow how some people are judged because of their opinions. And it's so good, and it's such a good and yet not invasive critique to this idea, and that's why I really feel like people should read this book. Apart from the plot, apart from the writing style, there are some ideas in it, some condemned ideas, that aren't really shoved down the throat of the reader, but you can actually grasp the fact that Zweig is really angry at what his country did. And even though it sounds nationalistic at times, so you feel like Zweig is actually blaming Austria for not being Austrian enough. And that's kind of wrong somehow. But when it comes to fighting such a dark figure, such a bad figure as Hitler was, it's so good. So please go and read it. Same exact thing, well, almost, for Mario and the Magician. So this book is actually set in a different setting. It's set in Italy, and it talks about a city on the seaside of Italy, and where actually Mann's family used to go. Well, in this fiction, because the city doesn't exist. In this city there's a magician who is basically just an entertainer. This magician somehow comes to know this other person, that the other person being Mario, and you have how the magician is seen by the population of the city as basically being this great person who is able to entertain, to relieve the people from their stupid lives, making them better. But Mario somehow feels something else about the magician, because he experiences something else. I don't want to talk about what he actually does experience, because I think that's kind of a spoiler. I don't really know. This book was written almost 100 years ago. That's quite a long time. But yeah, by the end of the novel, you actually understand that the magician is basically just something that stands for these leaders who just influence the population and make the population do stupid things, and just a little part of the population has to suffer under their hand, basically. Now, I don't feel like these books can be as strong as 1984 or Animal Farm or One Day in the Life of Ivan Dezinovich, or, well, whatever, Archipelago Gulag by Solzhenitsyn can be. They do not go really deep into details on how the population was mistreated, how the population was how people made the population turn away from their own selves. But I think that since they are short and they aren't actually focused on just what the population did or what these leaders did, I think that they can be just as powerful, or at least almost as powerful. And I do think that in this age where we have many figures whose cult of personality basically is coming back in vogue. I do think that these are actually some good books one may stop by and read. So of course I picked up this book because I didn't remember the last name of the protagonist of this book, but also this book is amazing, and it talks about Russian, so the Russian counterpart to the what happened in the 20th century. So if you read any of these books, please let me know in the comments below, and I will be happy to read your comments if you have a different opinion from me, because I think that these are the books that make people think, and so they should be read and criticized, or read and appreciated, because great dialogues can come from all of these things. So thank you, and see you in the next video, if we can, and if you want to.